Yeah. Hmm. Ignore that. Too late. Yeah, there's no way that's playing. Hey! Hey. Alright, good. So I hear it in my head. freeze frame. Okay. Let's get a little closer to the fire. Here we go.
Oh, look me in my eyes while you're fucking eating it.
Suck your stomach in, yo.
What?
Yo. Stop.
Ooh, girl, we better pull about some niggas. Yeah!
I got some bitches. Yeah!
Oh, yeah!
Everybody's so creative. You ever ate a dish at a potluck and wondered just how it was prepared? And you eat it and it's good, but you're like, what happened in the kitchen? I'm not sure, but I'm gonna try because I'm hungry. This will give you something to think about. See all that canned cheese and that pasta and butter? It's right in the sink. Because you don't have a bowl big enough. There's no other reason you would do it that way. Don't judge. You're just gonna mix it up. I'm pretty sure the sink is all scrubbed out with all sorts of chemicals. Now dump in all sorts of cheeses. You want to get $85 worth of cheese and dump in there right in that sink because you want to show off to everybody at the potluck. Put your garlic powder, your salt, loads and loads of salt and garlic salt because cheese is not salty at all. You have to add more and more. Plus, you got to remember, whatever water was left in that sink, you got to let that all, look how loose it looks. See how it looks sort of soupy? That's what you're going for. Now dump more cheese so it can turn into this, bubbling. See how it looks like something you put on your table at Thanksgiving dinner?
Ya, caralho, información.
Ready for this, baby?
Oh, look me in my eyes while you're fucking eating it.
Suck your stomach in, yo.
What?
Yo. Stop.
Ooh, girl.
You ready for this, baby?
Oh, look me in my eyes while you're fucking eating it.
Suck your stomach in, yo.
What?
You ready for this, baby?
Oh, look me in my eyes while you're fucking eating it.
Suck your stomach in, yo.
What?
Yo. Stop. All right, all right. Hope you ready for this, baby.
Oh, look me in my eyes while you're fucking eating it.
Suck your stomach in, yo.
What?
Yo. Stop. All right, all right. Hope you ready for this, baby.
Oh, look me in my eyes while you're fucking eating it.
Suck your stomach.
That was a meme. That was a meme in my stories, by the way. It's a classic one. Alright. It starts like this. get that sound. Always check my stories.
Ooh, girl, we finna pull up on some niggas, yeah!
Want to see what's going on Clubhouse? Let's see. Let's find out. Any music rooms? guess there are no rooms that are cool enough. And plus, I don't want to have to go into a music room by mistake.
Believe is consciousness, and yeah, I don't know if that answers your question, but that's sort of like when I think about it.
Yeah, and to be fair, I will tell you that everything I say will be filtered through certain lenses I have, and one of my lenses is I'm not a believer in an eternal soul that I have that would be separate from other eternal souls, and they transcend this life into another life. So what I want to say is, like, that is my view, and again, I can't prove, I don't have strong evidence, I'm not trying to say you are wrong. You know, this isn't meant to be a debate sphere where I beat you down and prove you into submission. It's more engaging with the different ideas. And that, frankly, Kavi, is one of the ideas in my daily, day-to-day life I encounter the most. But in my more academic and debate sphere, I encounter the least, is the idea that we have an eternal soul that transcends this plane of existence, might be one way of saying it, and goes to another one. But that for most of human history is probably the most common view of self, and that the self occupies a body, but the body is not a self, but at the same time it's the my at the core of my body, my hand, my thoughts, my ideas. There's a my at the core, an essence that preceded the existence of this physical form. That's where you get some existentialist thought on that. But if any of you, there's a common line that in most of my books I read, if they try and describe existentialism quickly, it's a school of thought that says that your existence, you coming into being, meant that you had no essence or purpose or meaning or anything. You exist first and then you make it. And I think what you're talking about is kind of that view where it's oppositional to that. That there is like a soul and it inhabits it, and then it goes on to other places and does other things. So yeah, that's an entirely different view of self that will take you to very different conclusions. And Flamingo Chick was writing in the chat, there's also the no self theory. Yep, that there are, we mentioned that right at the start of this room. There's the view that there isn't such a thing as self, that it's illusory. Are me and I the same thing? Exact same thing, it's just a grammar thing. Or how we...
No, go ahead, you're back now. You were in the Matrix. This is the big...
Oh, I like to be in the Matrix. See, myself's just an illusion. It's a hallucination. It's a fabrication in a simulated reality. No. But all of those are things we could talk about. So, Kavi, it sounds like you're part of the whole eternal soul. There's an existence that's transcendent. Anybody else got some thoughts on this, on their view? How about Monique? You started getting all of the signed up in here.
I mean, the way I look at the self is not necessarily through the lens that I've heard so far, but it's how we exist in the world. And I think the way the self, I do think that the self is that culture and how you identify with others also is part and parcel of the self. I think the better answer for me where I would start in this conversation would be to ask, what is the other? Because to me, once you locate the self, because in many ways, when I know.
Anyone else having difficulty hearing her?
Yes.
I stopped talking, but what did you not hear? Because I do have a red bar.
Oh, right at the end, you had said in many ways, and I kind of lost most of after that.
Oh, okay. I was just saying that in many ways, it's hard to, like, the way I think about it today, at least, is it's hard to identify the self when you can't, or when you haven't identified the other, because I think in many of these conversations, there is a juxtaposition between self and other, and so I always, I guess I would pose to folks what is other, and that maybe that would help with how people describe self.
Yeah. So there's a lot of philosophy that says that the self. I remember reading an article called "The Self: Hallucination of the Creation of God." And so I think there's a big view from political, social, and even like very core metaphysical understandings that the self can exist or define another, and therefore the other defines self. So on some level, like this big microbiome and different bacteria in our body, we would die without it. But at the same time, a lot of people call microbiome and different things. So we exist in opposition to those things. So there's one view that says that's really important, and there is this opposition. And there's another view that says that's like a social construction, like Monique was saying, like it's something described in society. So in that sense, now just to put, now this is a ontological statement, so having to do with actual existence. We can actually say self is literally constructed by society and environment, and what one is, not in just a political or verbal sense, but you are actually made into yourself by your environment, where it shapes you as a person. So do you have a racial identity, a constitutive identity? What parts of your body count as yours and not yours? And I think some people think this is there's a big debate in philosophy internally. I don't know if it's like political ideas. So in other words, is this the nature of by its other? Or is that just a way that kind of, it's useful in politics to say, for example, gender constructs are elsewhere, right? Trans is identified by cis, or, is wealthy defined by the poor. And yeah, I think there's something very powerful in that, and it does actually bring up a questioning of where is the barrier between self and other. Because if the self only exists in relationship to other, then the other is a critical part of the self that could never exist. And so it can be this kind of paradoxical position that, for example, in Eastern philosophy, and some people use this in a very Western, bastardized, watered-down way, but that's kind of the idea of the yin and the yang. That they actually co-create and define each other, and everything would be one and would be nothing without the contrast of the other, and at the core of the other it's there. And I think a lot of Western philosophy really struggles to even try to engage with this, because it does feel paradoxical and confusing. It seems to bring up certain logical conditions that violate math or things like that, but that doesn't mean they're not true, and that's the interesting part, right? So opening that back up to conversation. Anybody else want to drop in questions or thoughts about self? And by the way, if somebody wants to go back and forth, I think having a dialogue where two people push back, and again, it's not meant to own each other like in some of the places, but I'm very much hoping somebody has I think self is this, and I'm down for defending that and dialoguing around that. I think that's really useful for everybody, both the people doing it and the people listening.
Hello.
Hello.
I'm Tracy. I think self is the different from ego. So ego is easily affected by other people and a relationship and can be hurt. And we sometimes say, hey, he doesn't understand me, and I'm not like the one you think I am. But actually, you don't know exactly who you are. So ego is easily, you think you ego is the thing that you think as you are, but actually you are deceived by ego easily. But the nature of self is different from ego. So I think self is the one that you are given to find as you live. So it's like you are given a life, and life is kind of journey to find who you are. So if you find who you are, that is kind of the life that you have to live. So true you is different from ego that you think you are. So it's really hard to say I am. This is what I am. It is really hard because you are in a kind of in a way to find it as your life is like that. So it is like self is. It's really hard to put it in English, but your hand represents your whole body, and even the tiny part of you, like a very small skin cell of your body, contains all the information about you, your DNA. And drug is tested just by hair. So every single part of your body contains all the information of you. Like that, your body contains the whole universe. So that is why how yourself is connected to the universe and the people around you and the surroundings. So it is like, it is really hard to define self, but what I think is the life you are given is the kind of journey to find yourself.
So Tracy, if I can ask then, would you argue there's only a singular self, and the egos are preventing us from seeing the same self we all are? Or does each of us have an individual self, and the ego is obscuring us from experiencing the self?
So there is true self in your body, and which is very unique of yourself. But ego, easily you are deceived by ego that is perceived by others and surroundings. That's what I think. Does it make clear? Yeah. Am I clear?
Yeah, there's two different ways we can view when somebody talks about the ego obscuring the self. One way often used is that there's only one fundamental self. Spinoza talks about, like, for example, God being not a person who does things to the universe, but God itself being the totality of the entire universe. So in that way, when one comes to know themselves, they're coming to know God, not as in a person who made things, but just all things entirely. So there's one way we can say the ego keeps us from knowing everything, and that's what we are. And you kind of mentioned that idea of that the whole universe is in us, right? So that can be one way of viewing it. Or people can say there's a core of who you are, there's an essence, and the ego blocks you from seeing the essence of who you are. And that would be different, Go ahead, Tracy.
Yeah, just now what you said is the thing that I agreed with. True nature is different from ego, but ego, we are easily deceived by the ego, which is developed by the surroundings and the people from around us. But true self is different from ego. So to find the true self is very important, and that true self is connected with the universe. So true self cannot be hurt by others.
Also,
I see.
Sorry, go for it. No, I was just thinking, these conversations always make my head hurt a little bit because I'm not that philosophically inclined. But I think that true self can also so easily get corrupted by the egos of others. Thinking about myself, a couple of years ago, I ran in the wrong circle, so to say. And, I believed some things about like this is who I am. And it's only once I got out of that bubble that I realized what the people told me, like, you're not like this at all. So I think not just our own egos kind of shadows who we are, but also the egos of others kind of influencing and telling us, you know, oh, this is who you are. And I think there's often this in bad faith or bad intent from other people, and we start believing it. So, choose who you hang out with, right? Choose well.
Yeah, and I think there's two ways right now some of us might be talking about the self. And one is focusing on like the title of the room, right? What is the self that gets hurt? How does it get hurt? And how do we understand that? And the other is, but what actually is the self that could even be hurt? You know, the thing we want to protect, what is that thing? What's its nature? How do we know it? How does it exist? How does that reflect reality as a whole? So both those are really good. And there's two questions in the chat that I think are really great questions. Christina asked, what are the boundaries of self? Perceived from what perspective, right? So is it from the other? Is it from internally? Is it from the universe? Is it a physical phenomenon? Zoomed in and out, and what level? So, right, if you look at any of my individual cells, like if you take a red blood cell floating in a vein, it's surrounded just by a fluid. You know, it's just a saline fluid with other particles floating around. It's not in direct connection with another cell. It's not grounded. So in a sense, that cell exists in isolation from quote unquote me. Yet those cells that are floating in my fluid are a part of me. I made those cells, and they might go back and get reabsorbed. So some of this stuff is authentically very confusing to think about. And that's why people have written books for not just decades and centuries, I think literally millennia, on what is the self, how does it exist. So this stuff is hard, and to be frank, I think a lot of people, and I don't think there's something wrong with this, don't want to think about that. Like, there's no reason we have to think about self and define it. So there's one way that people deal with this by saying, okay, I'm just going to, and this kind of ties in with what Flamingo said, is this, and that's why I'm just giving language to these words if you're not familiar with them. They're not hard to understand and think about once you kind of get it. Flamingo Chick said, is this a metaphysical question? Like, what is the actual nature of reality? Or a phenomenological question? And phenomenology is the study of like phenomena or things that happen. So like a fall is actually very complicated. If I see somebody trip and fall, from a physics perspective, it's very confusing because every step is falling, but also like what is the central point of gravity? What's the reference point? What is the relationship? Both objects in theory are moving to some extent. So a fall is extraordinarily complicated, yet I can bring up almost any 2 or 3 year old and they can be like, they fall, ow, you know, they understand the phenomenology. So there's two different ways of looking at this, right? What is the phenomena of the fall, or what is the actual, what is the metaphysical nature of the fall? So when we talk about self, we can do the same. What's the phenomena of having a self, feeling like a self? How do selves work in the world? Or what's the actual nature? When we get to the quote reality, if somebody could be right or wrong, what is the right or wrong view about self? And both of those are something we can believe in. And I'm just reading from the chat because some interesting comments. Flamingo Chick replied, and if you want to come up, Flamingo Chick, please do. I'd love to hear your voice on this if you're in a place where you can. For me, I believe that people have a multiplicity of self states and more than one true. Sorry, I can't come up right now. Okay, she can't come up right now. And so, in other words, that's a vision of saying, okay, there is no true self. There's states of self. We just read a book, ironically. Some of you were in the room on that reading probably, where somebody posits this, a concept of there being multiple selves in different dimensions. So there may be too. I mean, there's no guarantee. For those of you that know the metaphor of the ship of Theseus, there's no guarantee that we're the same self over time. It's going to depend on the metaphysical nature of the self. I hope I'm saying your name right. Is it Nyoiki? I may be saying that wrong. How would I say your name?
Oh, my name?
Yes.
Nyoiki.
Nyoiki. Okay, thanks. Do you want to say this one?
Oh, me flickering with my mute is basically
You're doing the old school, like
I'm from generations. So you made a lot of statements that I disagree with, because and it's very egocentric as human beings to even decipher what they believe is in this unconditionally realm of universe and everything that involves us. It is very egocentric how we live as human beings in general. So what is the ego? The ego can be, for some people, it can be being apathic. It can be thinking about yourself rather than other people. It can be oppressive. It can be even positive to some people. So, and I believe we truly need ego. Ego is there to humble us, and ego is there to honestly give us straight up that we need balance in every aspect of life. So I do believe we need ego. We do not need to overuse ego, because people tend to misuse certain things that hold a lot of power, just like anger, just like financial aspects. As soon as you get a lot of it, you feel, and that's also human, you feel powerful. And some people tend to change because of that. So, you know, their ego can be different than the ego we're talking about. We're talking about consciousness. So I guess when we in this room talk about ego, is literally the blueprint and the definition of the ego. But anyone has a different definition of it as well. And I think it's also very egocentric to not even consider that. We're just humans, actually. We're like the scum of the universe. Aliens look down on us. And we're just, with all the materials and everything that is natural that we can have, we still messing shit up. So yeah, ego is like, it's subjective.
So when we talk about ego, I find there's a couple different ways people describe it. I wish I could teleport Frank back in here. I'm trying to see if there's a psychoanalyst in the building. I feel like I'm on a plane and I'm like, quick, we have an emergency. We need a psychoanalyst. So you got this Freudian view of the id, the ego, and the superego, right? And so the superego is that collective pressure and understanding
Why
of
is this
society.
Freudian?
Freud, I think, coined these terms.
Of ego, yeah.
Yeah. So this is a term that Sigmund Freud actually invented, gave language to. And when Freud coins it, he creates these three different steps. There's the id, the self at the core. There's the ego, the thing that kind of dictates and instructs and connects to the superego, which is the like view of what society is. So when some people are like, you exist in relation to something else. I am not an expert at teaching this, but that's kind of the simplistic version. Is there's the id, yourself at the core, base desires and whatnot, the ego, the thing that kind of looks after that and relates to the superego, this
But
bigger
wait,
societal.
y'all talking about him giving it a name, right?
Correct. So like if you say
Exactly.
the word,
So it's not that it hasn't been around, because he defined that term in like the 1920s.
Not exactly the way he did. He conceptualized it different.
Yeah, right. But that was like in the previous century. But the concept of ego exists way before that. So
yes.
that's why I asked, how is it Freudian?
So